There's a lot of jiu-jitsu students that struggle with the mount position. I hear it often said that they get to mount and they feel like they don't have as many options as they do from side control or some of these other dominant positions. And they almost give up mount because they want to go to something that they feel easier to work with. So let's kind of address this and why they feel that way, and then how we can start to overcome some of those feelings with it. When I have a person, so you're down, Joel, and I have a person in side control. So I'm here like this and working with him. I'm controlling his head and his chest. I've got this good connection with him. And every time he moves, I can feel it. Even a subtle shift of his body, as I'm in here with this position, he turns his hip, he moves his shoulders, anything he does, I can feel it because there's a good amount of surface connection between he and I as we're working through the positions. When I have a mount position on Joel, where I'm here, I really don't have a lot of connection with him. The vast majority of my weight's on my knees. I feel a little bit of his hips turning. If my feet are connected tight like this, I feel even better control of his hips. But all these subtle shifts of his upper body movements, I miss those. Those aren't the same as when I have the top side control. So the cues that he gives me are lessened when I have mount. My ability to transition is also limited. When I have mount on somebody, really my options are I can choke him, I can arm lock him, I can transition to S-mount, technical mount, and that's where we're kind of limited to, right? If we have side control, we can go to scarf holds, head and arm controls, go to knee on bellies, go to take the back, go to all these other positions where there's more mobility. We lose that when we have just our mount position, all right? Why is mount then always viewed as a dominant position? In jiu-jitsu, when it came early on from Alio and from down in Brazil, it was more about fighting, right? If I can come here and have mount position on somebody, I can strike him a lot more effectively than he can strike up and try to hit me. They viewed this as a dominant position, mostly because of the striking opportunities and the control that I have. In a sport jiu-jitsu world, you can sit up, in the sport jiu-jitsu world, because we're not doing the striking, it's not as important to be in the mount position because all those other spots, the side controls, the knee on bellies, the scarf holds, they can all give you the good submission opportunities that maybe mount misses. And because the strikes aren't involved, it loses some of that importance. I still like the mount position. I still think it's a very dominant position. I still feel that we need to do a better job of maintaining that mount once we have it to control the person, mostly to fatigue them, make them tired, make them panic, forcing them into a mistake that we can capitalize on. Within the Team Vagi curriculum, we have the mount control position. Within that mount control position, there's a number of variations that occur. One of them is traditional mount control, and then there's variations that come within the traditional mount control based on where our body's going to be positioned, where our center is going to be placed. So for instance, if Joel's here on the bottom and I have this top mount position, this is what you would typically see in a mount position. My knees here across his torso, I'm sitting across his body. My hands are either going to be in kind of a down position like this, or I'll have a vertical posture here. A number of different ways I can position my body. But we really want to break down the nuances of the position and make some proper choices as to how and why I want to position myself. So the first thing we're going to do is understanding if I have mount position, I have three different choices of where I want to kind of put my focus. Do I want to be in a higher mount position? Do I want to be more in this middle range position or more in a lower range position? Each one is going to have its benefits and its negatives. So I want to make sure I'm making that informed choice based on what my opponent's doing for me. First of all, if I want to go to more of that high position, right? So I'm in here like this. We're going to start in this high mount position. My knees are higher up under the armpits, more to keep his elbows open. I don't want him to be able to close his elbows shut. As he's here, he finds it difficult for him to protect his arms. He's more vulnerable to my attacks. And I'm just in kind of a better all-around spot. What I want to make sure, though, is that it's my knees coming up to the armpits. My hips are kind of staying back. I don't want to be too far over top of him. I certainly don't want to be going for like head control with my knees up high, because there's too much of his body behind me that it's hard for me to control. If my knees are up in the armpits, my hips are going to be back. I'm sitting over his torso with my weight here. If he tries to bridge or move through a gun bridge, I can absorb this a little bit because he's dealing with my weight as I'm sitting on him here. If I'm more forward like this, he bridges again, I get thrown more because my weight's already too high, and when he hits me, it kind of launches me forward. So my knees are here, but my weight's back as I sit in this high mount position. If I come a little bit lower like this, across the torso, now he's able to close his elbows. He's able to frame better. He's able to start working some of his escapes better. My advantage with this though is I got better control of his hips. I can use my knees to squeeze inward. I can tuck my toes in. I can start to kind of wedge and create posts on his hips to limit his ability to shrimp and move. I don't have this ability to control the hips when I'm already this high up. I've kind of lost that hip control. So as I come down, I'm losing control of his upper body, but I'm gaining control of his hips. Again, if I have this kind of middle range mount, my knees are squeezing inward, my toes are kind of flaring in a bit, like this, and I'm keeping everything tucked and contained. There's different versions of this that we'll get to in a second, but this is more of my mid-range position. If I want to go further down into a low range position, I'm going to turn Joel, go through here. It's more about how I position my feet. As we're here like this, I can bring my feet a little bit lower and cross my feet. By crossing my feet, now he tries to move his hips, do like an elbow escape or any kind of movement. I really control his hips. I've locked him down. My hands will work like posts. As we go through, I can go to prayer feet, which is going to be here like this, where my feet are together, my knees are tight. I'm trying to keep my heels close to his tailbone anytime I either cross my feet or have my feet in this kind of prayer feet position. I want to keep his hips locked and controlled. Another option is going to be here. We can actually turn just a little bit. You can see how my feet are on top. This is kind of like a prayer feet position, but over top of his legs. What's nice about this is anytime he moves, it's a pretty easy transition to go to knee on belly, to leave the mount as we come through. I have less control initially, but that less control allows me better freedom of movement as I'm trying to go from position to position. So when we're talking about the mount position, there's a number of different ways that we can change up how our feet and how our hips work, but there's also a number of different ways that we can change up how our hands work. And the different ways we control the upper body is going to be important, especially when we're trying to use it in combination with how we're using our feet. So for example, Joel's down, I have mount position. Anytime that I choose to have my upper body back away like this, we call this a vertical posture. By having this vertical posture here, the range is a little harder for Joel to try to grab on him. If he wants to try to reach up for a collar or a sleeve, he'd give me an arm bar. So he's got to keep his elbows close. I have a little bit more freedom up here. My weight's back over his hips. I'm in a good position this way. Sometimes I may choose to start to drop myself down a little bit if I want to kind of smother them or put pressure on them, maybe get a little bit of a sense of claustrophobic feel. So my chest is now going to go down towards his head. When I do this, and I lay down here like this, I'm always trying to get him to turn head to a side. So I may purposely come to one side and angle his head over a little bit, because now by turning his head, I know what side he's going to favor for his escapes. If his head is still vertical like this, he can choose either way pretty equally. But the moment he turns his head facing this way, it's going to be very difficult for him to turn against where his eyes are going. So by turning his head, I know that most of his outs are going to be going this way. As I use my chest to kind of hit to the side and turn his head here, my hands are going to go out kind of about 45 degrees. As I go through here, I don't want my hands directly out in front. I don't want them directly out to the side. Just kind of a comfortable 45 degrees out. Again, my chest kind of laying here like this. As I do that, it's imperative that my feet are tight to his hips. I recommend, if you're going to do this, to grapevine the legs, to drive your hips and torso down into his lower body, to lock up his hips. If you don't want to do a grapevine, you can cross your feet to have kind of a closed guard from the mount kind of position. If you want, you can try to just squeeze your hips in or squeeze your knees in, tuck your feet, those kind of prayer feet that we have. That's an option for you. But my strongest recommendation is going to be the grapevine through here, or crossing the feet from this position as we're here. If you don't want to go for that complete smother, you can hook the head and grab on this way. This hand is still going to be out, as this is wrapping his head kind of a cross face. I know I'm susceptible here, so I'm purposely overloading my weight to this side. Don't think your head is going to be a post to try to block this reversal, because that's just going to aid him in his bridge escape. So keep your head over here, keep that weight overloaded. If at any point you feel like he's trying to send you over, this hand will shoot inside, and that'll start to set up your Ezekiel choke options, and maybe make him come back to have to defend the choke versus trying to defend the bridge. So whatever side underhook you have on the head, this always has to be ready for that quick moment that Ezekiel choke may come into play to put pressure on the head. Within every control position or any position we have in our T-Bagi system, we're going to have a number of micro drills that we're going to put in place. So this, since we're talking about the top position in a traditional mount, we'll have 10 micro drills that will assist us in learning how to maintain that top position. So these drills, while they're not full techniques in their own, used in a drilling situation can help us preserve that spot as he's trying to work his different escapes. So the first one we're going to do is this. Take me down, head facing toward the camera there, perfect. So when I'm in a top mount position like this, what I'm going to do is, if I'm keeping my legs in nice and tight to his hips, kind of squeezing my knees in, my feet are tight here, I'm going to let my lower body kind of go limp and kind of lay flat on him. So while we're here, I'm like this. I'm dropping my chest and my weight down, my hands are kind of spread out wide, and I've got my legs active as far as the pressure, with my upper body loose. By doing that, if he's trying to come across like to block the hip or to do any kind of escapes, as my body's lying on him like this, he has a hard time bringing the hand across because he's got to deal with all of my weight on the torso. Anytime I try to pick my body up, that gives him room to shoot this arm across and begin his escapes. So because he's limited at what his hands can do, what he's often going to try is pushing up with his hands. So he's going to put both of his hands on my shoulders like this. He's going to press up. As he presses up, I'm this kind of dead weight, go ahead and press up like this. I'm going to start to swim my hands through to clear and return myself back to a flat position. I don't want to be stiff in my upper body. I want to be loose, that kind of dead weight for him to try to press up on. If I'm stiff with my upper body, it's going to aid him in his ability to push. One hand goes at a time, so as my right hand goes through, the shoulder will turn, my other hand will turn, or my other shoulder turn backward, and as my right hand gains the exit, my left hand will kind of swoop in, always trying to fight for this middle ground. So I'm here, he presses up, I swim through like this, do it again, up, swim, swim, gain the top. What I don't want to do is I don't want to go both hands at the same time. It's always one or the other. I was leading with my right, I could just as easily lead with my left, as long as it's one hand at a time. All right, the next mount maintenance drill is going to be an arm drag when the person is either pushing up kind of mid-torso or they're trying to fight their way down towards your hip to work an eventual elbow escape. So while Joel's down here, I have this mount position. Instead of being up higher by the shoulders, he's now going to be a little bit lower. Because of that, when he pushes up, that swim is going to be problematic for me because this arm is too far away. So as he presses up here and I recognize that, I'm going to be taking his arm and dragging it across the body. Primarily the push is on the elbow. If I can fish for that wrist and hand, it's even better. As I shoot this across, I'm going to re-drop my body on top of him and try to establish myself back in mount. My hope is to not allow him to get to this hip. And if I do this drag across here like this, and I drop my weight, I may be aiding him in getting to that elbow escape he wants. So my goal is to try to bring it up higher over this shoulder. So while this focuses on the drag, this focuses on the direction to try to get it up and out of my hip area. So as he pushes up on me this way, comes up, I'm here, getting across. He has to kind of restart himself. He brings us here, he pushes up again. If I go this way, this elbow's being pushed as this arm is redirecting and dropping my body weight up. He has to kind of restart himself, he pushes up again, dragging across, keeping it high. As we go through, one more time, he pushes up, grabbing, elbow, pushing across. So this does most of the lateral work. This does the directional work up. As I reset myself, blocking his arm, forcing him to kind of come through and reset. All right, for our next maintenance drill here, it's going to be addressing the hand that's pushing on the thigh and raking it upwards, allowing us to gain towards a high mount. So while Joel is down, I have this position here. One of his common escapes is going to be an elbow escape, and for that to happen, he's going to have two hands kind of coming down through here. And while hopefully my body position is kind of addressing this hand, a simple upward rake will address this. Be it if it's going to be like on his tricep or his forearm, whatever grip I have a better chance of catching, I'll go for. So as I'm here in this mount position, I feel his hand drift down. With 4 fingers, no thumb, I'm just coming through, I'm collecting, and I'm raking up on his arm. And immediately I want to flood that space with this knee. So as I rake this up, I shoot this up high to block this ability for him to re-bring that elbow into play. And then from here, I'll hit the other side, I'll rake that up. I'll get to a high mount where I'm sitting heavy. And then for the purposes of the drill, I'll return to allow him to hit the other side. So as he's here, and this arm is coming across, again, hopefully my body position's blocking this hand from coming through real easily, but I can be raking up on this far side. So as we're here, and I rake up on this far side this way up, I slide this in place. Wherever this arm happens to be, I'll fish that one out too. I'll rake that up, and then my knee will slide into place, and I'll sit heavy. Remember, when we're in a high mount, our knees are up, but our weight is back, keeping that weight on his torso. I don't want to be too overloaded over top of the head. And then I return. If his hand is here on the knee, that rake will be on the forearm. If it's his elbow on my knee, the rake will be on the tricep. The motion for me doesn't change. It's just whatever I can make a good connection with. So he's here like this. 4 fingers come in, I rake upward, knee shoots in place. I come planting my hand, hit the other side, rake it upward to get my top position. If it's his hand, it's on my knee like this, right by where his wristwatch should be, flip that up, I'll shoot this knee up, replant, re-solidify high mount position. So the next micro drill associated with this mount maintenance control stuff we're going to be doing is hooking the head. So as Joel was initially trying to press up on me and I was swimming my hands through, now he's going to be changing his angle a little bit, so he's going to be pushing me more from one side to the other instead of straight up. So while Joel is down, I have the mount position. It's going to be the same thing where my knees are kind of squeezing tight. I've got this top position. And again, now instead of him pressing directly up, he's going to be pressing at a side or a side to my upper body. So as we're here, he presses up. I'm going to be hooking his head with my hand here and basically using that as kind of leverage to kind of hold myself in space. At the same time, my knee to that side, I want to make sure it's kind of light so I can kind of shift it a little bit. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want him to basically shift my weight over and my knee becomes stuck and I kind of teeter or start to lose my balance on this knee. So as he goes through and as he goes this, I'll kind of hop this knee out a little bit. I'm going to keep my foot kind of flared into his body to try to block his knee and his shin a little bit, trying to prevent that kind of regard from happening. I may have my hip a little bit lower, but I do want my knee to shift out so I'm not stuck underneath him. Keep this knee light so you can make that shift. My far side hand is going to maintain that hook in the head. I'm going to be coming up on my foot on this side, and the moment I feel him relax, I'll shift right back to where I was. He goes the other way. I'm hooking his head. My knee shifted out. This knee here kind of came up, but I'm keeping everything nice and tight connected until we come back through to regain the position. One more time each side. Here, I'm hooking. Knee flared out, returns. Other way, hooking, returning. All right, and very similar to the hooking the head with the hand is going to be hooking the head with the elbow. This is going to be when I'm a little bit closer to him, maybe setting up an Ezekiel choke or using some other kind of control for the head. And because I'm already a little closer, I'm just going to use my basically cross-face ability to maintain that tightness to him rather than give him too much space to exploit. So when he's down like this, let's say that I'm already working this hand in place. If I've got a hand hooked here, I know that I'm susceptible to getting reversed here with a bridge escape or something else. So because I have this hand hooked, I'm already kind of favoring my weight out this way with this hook. So as we're going through and I eventually get this hook and I kind of resettle, I may be squaring up. I'll go ahead and bridge out one way or the other. As he goes through, he hooks. My knee flared out, same as before. Rather than give him all this extra room, I'm just going to be here with this hook in place. As he settles, I come back, he goes the other way. I'm hooking here with this head. My weight's overloaded, I got the kickstand in place, and the moment I feel him try to do anything with the shrimp out or try to move, I'm just going to stay connected with him here to make sure I can ride him back to flat. So a couple more times, hooking with the head, knee flared out, hands out for a base, return, other way, hooking the head, coming through, reestablishing. Our next mount maintenance drill is going to be body surfing. And what this is, very similar to what they would do with the Gracie Kids games, where you kind of learn just to stay on top of somebody. But what I want to focus on is keeping our knees light. So as the person's trying to roll, you keep your knees up and elevated so they're not getting sucked and wrapped underneath. While we would never go through and do this with these full barrel rolls in place, it's just a good drill to kind of go back and forth with. So while Joel is down, we got the position for mount. Anytime I feel him starting to turn and starting to face the side, if I allow weight to keep on this knee, especially if he keeps my foot trapped, it's harder and harder for me to kind of recover my position, because with this weight, or this knee being load bearing, it's easier for me to get sucked under and then maybe even get reversed. So when he rolls, I want to keep this knee light and kind of go with him a little bit, kind of ride through the position. He keeps going through, I'm riding through. I would have stopped to control rear mount, I would have stopped to try for some submissions, but since this is just a micro drill, he's going to go the other way. I'm just going to learn to kind of ride him, keeping my knees tight. He goes the other way one more time, keep my knees light, just maintaining that top position, returns. And then how this would translate over, he does that one more time, goes through. Because that knee's light, I can transition to my technical mount, I can transition to other things. Because I know that as he goes this direction, I don't want this to be a load-bearing knee. And that's all this drill is helping us do, is just kind of learn how to shuffle back and forth to open up the opportunities to transition to better spots. All right, for the next mount maintenance drill here, it's going to be addressing when his hands come down closer to the hips. He knows if he wants to escape, he has to try to use his core, being his hips and his body, to establish the energy to get away from the position. He doesn't want to just use his arm strength or his leg strength. He wants to use his entire body to help him out. So his hands will drift out by my hips, and he'll start to push from one side to the other. As he does so, I'll address it with the knee and stomach. So we are here, and from this position, his hands hit my hips, he begins a process of bridging through. As my hips start to leave his body with his bridge, I'm going to circle my outside foot to transition here to a knee on belly. So my knee stayed pretty much right where it was. It was my foot that rotated around to get this connection in place. As my foot comes here, I don't want to lose connection of him either. So as I come through, my hands will either hook his head or I'll grab onto his gi, whatever grip I want to make. As he relaxes, I'll return back to mount position. He goes the other way with this, circle my foot. I've got my knee on belly connections. I got connections with him. He goes to return back to flat. I guide right back to mount. He goes the other way again, through here, connecting, maintaining, returning. He goes the other way, connecting, here, returning the position. All right, our next mount maintenance drill is going to be learning how to shift our hips to try to negate some of the power he can establish from a bridge. If he wants to do an escape, especially against a bigger, stronger opponent, his core and his hips have to be the main factor in his escape or his reversal. So I need to be able to address his strongest point to maintain my position. So while he's down, I'm just going to say I have mount position and I have Joel's head hooked here. It's natural for him to feel like he could send me this way for a bridge escape because I'm trapping my own arm. My left arm is free as a post, so this way is blocked already. He would have to go this direction. What I'm going to do is, as I feel like he's starting to bridge, I'm going to launch my left leg back to almost form kind of a hook on his leg, but more importantly, I'm dropping my weight down on his outer hip. Me hooking this leg is secondary to the weight coming down on the hip here. So as he goes through and he tries to bridge, I switch my hips, kind of drive that down, he relaxes, I return. If we come through this way, he does the same thing. I'm trapping with a hook on this leg, but more importantly, I'm dropping my weight on his hip to try to block his ability to reverse me. We come through, he wraps, dropping the hip, goes through here, dropping the hip. What it's going to look like is, as this arm is trapped, I'm dropping my weight to that outer side of his body to negate his ability to bridge up. All right, the next maintenance drill we're going to do is emphasizing the hooks. And we're going to use the hooks as a way to kind of negate his ability to bridge. Some of the other mount maintenance drills require a little bit of hooking to it, but this one's going to be an emphasis specifically on hooking the legs. While Joel is down in this position, anytime that I feel he wants to bridge towards me this way, this is his power leg. If he's going to bridge toward the camera, this is going to become his power leg. So what I need to do is negate some of the power coming from this leg and some of the stability with a hook. It's going to be very similar to the hip shift we did before, but a little different emphasis. Before, the hip shift was focusing on the hips, now I'm focusing on the leg. So when we're in this position, if he goes through and he starts to kind of bridge or turn me over, I'm switching my base to hook his foot to kind of curve his body a little bit. As I straighten my leg, it curves his leg more and more, taking away his power, puts a little bit of stress on his leg. From here, what I like to do is try to come underneath this arm, and I'll bring his arm in this open position. I'm going to separate his elbow from his torso, and as I come up higher, I'll release the hook, and I'll finish in a mount this way with his arm above his head. Very open for submission opportunities and whatnot, and obviously hard for him to return back to a position where he can escape. So when we're here, he tries to go through the other way. He's here, I'm hooking, I'm hopping my body out of the way, but my emphasis is on straightening my leg to maintain the curvature of his back and his spine going here. And then this hand's swimming under, and then once I kind of got this good undergrip going, I'll release the pressure on the leg to return back to a good mount position on top. Every time I make that hook, I want to turn my hips. So my hips are in this open position, my toes are facing out to the side. I'm not hooking and straightening with my toes and knees facing down. I'm opening my hips as I straighten that leg to maintain that top position. All right, and then for our last mount maintenance drill, our last micro drill with the mount position, we're going to be addressing what if the person on the bottom is utilizing their feet to try to off balance you backwards. This is not as common with guys that are maybe with shorter legs or don't have the flexibility, but you get a guy with higher level or a person, like I said, with longer legs, more flexibility. This is a valid concern of ours if their feet start getting into our armpits or even kind of cross in front of our chest. So while Joel is down and I have this more higher mount position where my knees are up in the armpit, remember how I said I want you to kind of keep your weight back a little? As I'm here, if he's got the flexibility, the ability to, he brings a foot up like this can start to pose a problem for me. Especially if he gets both of his feet in here like this, where now I'm kind of stuck, keep grabbing the hands once, and as he's kind of push-pulling, knock me off balance, I can start to fall and lose my position. So I need to be able to address this if the feet rise up on me. So as I'm here in the high mount, he brings a foot up. As soon as I recognize this, I have to swim to the inside to clear that foot. Very similar to the first one we did, swimming with our arms, only now we're addressing the feet. I also want to make sure he's not grabbing my sleeve as the foot comes up, because now if I try to swim through, that's going to cause me a problem. So grab the sleeve. If I got to clear this grip first, I will, to try to get it through, but the preference is just to maintain a flow for the drill. Bring the feet up, he circles through, I swim, and return back to where I was. I'm up, feet come up in front, I'm swimming a hand inside, swimming a hand inside to reestablish myself in this high mount position. It's important when practicing these micro drills to start out slow and gradually increase your speed. Your goal should be working on being smooth, not choppy and fast. These 10 micro drills focus on the top person maintaining mount. In future videos, we'll be showing 10 micro drills for the bottom person, as well as micro drills for all the other major positions. For those with grappling experience, these drills may seem kind of dull or slow-paced. However, as you drill more and more, you'll find during live rolling that you will be instinctively moving through the positions better, and you'll have more success against higher level opponents. For more information about our team, visit teamvaginorth.com or go to our social media pages such as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.